Everybody, welcome to my channel, Be Free Now with Maria. So today we're going to start out with my bag of words and see what I'm inspired to share. All right, and hopefully I don't get repetitive words. Let's see. Oh boy, I took out 3 right off the back. So let's see, what do we got? We have shame. Oh, interesting. And we have resilient and regret. Interesting. Wow. All right, so let's start with shame, because shame is very, very interesting. It's something that we have all felt at some point or another point in our lives, and some maybe even still feel, right? We carry this shame, this negative belief about ourselves, and this in general about us not being good enough, not being worthy enough. And we get so caught up in that space that we end up locking ourselves up. It's like because we're having these negative thoughts about ourselves and feeling this shame about ourselves, and we're walking around with this worry that what if they knew, an imposter syndrome, that we fear, right, what people would think, and we lock ourselves up. We don't move forward. We just freeze and we get distracted, we get busy, and we say, oh, I don't have the time. But it's not really time. It's this shame that's creating this fear, right? Or then creating a sense of guilt when we do try to step forward. For example, we'll start to feel like, oh, maybe that's not the right thing, because what about so and so? Or if I, do what I want to do, then, I'm not a good mom, or I'm not a good friend, or I'm ignoring other things or other people. And then we start to guilt ourselves, and we end up, just continuing a cycle that doesn't really feel good. Then we end up feeling regret for what we didn't do, and further compounding what we're doing to ourselves emotionally, because we're walking around with this shame that we're not addressing. So we want to break that cycle. We want to start shifting, and we have to start out by being honest with ourselves. We have to look at, it's a must that we are honest with ourselves, that we look at in which way, right, we're walking around with shame, and what shameful thoughts are we having about ourselves, and in which way we're having this imposter syndrome, where we're thinking, we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough, we're not deserving enough, and that somehow somebody else is better than we are. And then, spiral from there, right, into comparison, and again, further locking ourselves up. And then, of course, what is it going to lead to, right? Regret, because eventually we're going to get to a point where we're going to feel frustrated and some regret for what we're not doing. So we have to start out with being honest with ourselves, and then start examining what it is, right, that we're thinking, that we're feeling about this situation, about these thoughts, and start breaking through this barrier. Because if we don't, we won't be able to move to the point where we want to get to, right? So this takes a lot of courage, dedication. I was going to say motivation, but it's more than motivation. It's a commitment. It's a commitment to what is it that we want. It's a commitment to being consistent with what we want and what we do, right? Because if we want something but we're doing the opposite of what we want, then we're never going to get what we want, because we have a contradiction here. We want to build ourselves up, right? We want to learn, right, how to move out of this space. And in order to do that, we have to be committed. We have to show up for ourselves, meaning every day taking our time, to sit with ourselves, right, and to start exploring some of these things that we're holding on to, right? Some of these beliefs that we're holding on to that are hurting us or stopping us in our tracks. Because in order for us to create some movement in the direction that we want to go in, we have to change how we're doing things. If we keep on doing things the same old way, we're going to have the same old experiences. Nothing's really going to change unless we really do something every single day. And even though our days are busy, even if we take 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, right? We take that time to start changing a pattern, to stop the cycle, right? So we're consciously doing it even when we don't feel like it, right? We're just no longer gonna say, I'm too busy. We're gonna change it, because if we don't, then we continue the cycle, and ultimately we are responsible, right, for ourselves. Only we can do it for ourselves. There's no one else that can do the work for us. It's only us, right, that can do the work for ourselves. We know what we're thinking, and when we take a minute to pause, we are able to see what that is. When we're willing to be honest with ourselves, when we're willing to hold ourselves accountable for what it is that we're thinking and it's holding us back, right? And to do this work, then we create the movement that we want. And through those moments, right, we build up our inner strength. And as we do that, our resiliency starts to increase, because now we go from feeling really yucky inside to learning how to tolerate that uncomfortability, right? And as we learn to tolerate, our inner strength increases, and as that increases, right, our resiliency is also increasing as we're doing that work. And there's just no shortcut here. I like to say, you can skip a day or two, and you can, and we all do it. Lord knows I have, on my journey, right? I've gone like, oh yeah, I'm doing really great. And then I just kind of stop and don't do anything. And then it's like, oh no, you got to get back up, Maria. And then, climbing up again, and then, stop. So we have to be gentle with ourselves. At this point, I realized, like, this is really not good for me. This is like, going without food. Because I realized that I can recognize the difference in how I feel and how I show up for myself and how I show up to life. It's just so different when I'm willing to be honest with myself, when I'm willing to take the time and invest in myself. And that's really what this invitation is for, right? For investing in yourself. And it's okay to be there for people, but you matter too. I matter too. We all matter. And when we take the time to invest in ourselves, we create movement, and we break out of that locked space, right? That where we're just kind of like, frozen in time. We start to break, right? To melt that ice and break free from that space and start building our resiliency and learning more and more about ourselves as we go along the journey, and figuring out, right, different ways to get through whatever it is that comes up for us. So before I end, actually, I did shuffle my deck from the Untethered Soul, and this is the card on top, so I'll read this. And it says, enthusiasm, joy, and love. If you can feel that all the time, then who cares what happens outside? I love that. Okay, so this is perfect because it is so true. And this is the hardest thing to feel when we're feeling heavy inside, which is to feel enthusiastic or joy or even love. Sometimes we shut off to that, right? Because when we're living in shame, we're not loving ourselves, because we're in this yucky space. But when we take time every single day, right, to remember that, this is, even if we can't feel it, that this is the direction that we're going in, even that helps us, right? But if we can cultivate, right, a practice where we can remember, right, to love ourselves or to feel grateful for something, because that will bring then in some joy, right? That helps create a balance for us. And as we shift, so a practice, right, a simple practice of gratitude then starts to open up that door of joy, right? Because now we're not just seeing all of the hardships or the shame or the things that we don't like. We're seeing what is good in our lives, what we are, right, happy to have, and that creates a good feeling within. And the other thing is that, to create some enthusiasm within ourselves is reminding ourselves, right, that we're doing this because it's giving us something, so it's not like we're enthusiastic because we're going to a party and we expect to have a ball, right? We're enthusiastic about doing the work because it's going to give us, right, the shift and the movement that we're wanting, right, that we're looking for. So we want to remember, right, that we're doing, that there's something that's going to come from this, right, that we're increasing our resiliency, that we're walking towards changing consciously as opposed to just functioning on automatic pilot. And a good way to remember, right, is to write it down for yourself and read it every day, to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, why you do the work, right, and why you want to take those 5, 10, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever time you have a day, right, to pause and to start getting to know yourself. Because as we go through, the day, we may be on a high, but then the next day it's like, whew, we, stop short, some other things come up, we get caught up, or we're feeling good and we don't follow through, and it's easy to get off track. But when we have it written down, we read it to ourselves every day, it reminds us, and it gives us also the motivation to get back on track, to take that time, to not just skate over it or overlook it. It's like, we need to drink fluid every day, and we also need to care for our psyche, because if we don't, right, then we don't really get to where we want to go. So I'm going to end with that, and I hope that you have a beautiful day and that this video has helped you in some way. If you have any comments, any thoughts, please feel free to share them in the comments. I would love to read them. All right, have a beautiful day, and bye for now.